Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Monday. It is September 28th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and it was really it feels like a quiet day. This is probably a more normal day. There's still a lot of volume here, a lot of bars, uh, but it feels kind of quiet after what we've been used to the last week or two. As you can see here, it's mostly uphill today. There were some there were some rather I don't really want to call them large, but these are significant corrections, I guess you should say. We started off with this real tight brown channel. That's just way too steep, way too strong. So no surprise that we went into the blue one, and even that is a little too strong. And notice we kind of flattened out after that, continued trending up until we had a break here, and finally got a new high with the brown channel. Then we corrected again into the close. So pretty standard day. Nothing really out of the ordinary here, other than again these are decent corrections here, so you got to let them play out. And just about in every case, here you got a new low, but for the most part, well, actually here you had a breakaway up here and probably had a new low. Here you never got a new low, so I guess they still worked out, but they didn't work out. You would expect to get a breakdown in here and a new low, and then you would, similar to this one basically. But for the most part, the rest of them all played out relatively basically how you would expect. Notice even the brown one, you get the close outside, new high, and then we're correcting. This is the only one that didn't really give you a new low, and that was really because it looks like this blue channel. You can see we turned down right off of that midline. You can see it coming into play up here. You can see the midline even coming into play back down through here. So there was a lot of conversation on the forum today or over the last couple of days. Seemed like the word of the day was repetition, but a lot of it stemmed around drawing these trend lines and things. And the key is that prices should fit neatly within them. If you see prices turning consistently and they're not touching your trend channel, then you probably don't have it drawn properly. So here's a good example. This is the way I drew this one this morning. And notice how we kept turning up off the lows. Of course, you could argue that the midline was there, but I think my channel is just off just slightly. And if you watch, if you adjust it just a little, now it's turning each time it touches. And I believe that to be correct. Notice it doesn't change anything. You still get your break at the same place, and you try to go lower a few times before it bounces. So that's a great example that you don't have to get it right. I mean, I drew it like I always draw it using those closes, but mine's a little too steep there. And you can see how we're turning. Let me make this a little bigger. And I accidentally drug that down by accident. But you can see we're coming up short there. And that generally tells you that something's, again, you could probably make the argument that the midline's there. But if you just adjust that just slightly where we get those touches down there, you still are turning down right off the trend line up here. You still get your break at the same place, so it doesn't change anything. So it just shows you that as long as you get it relatively close, you're probably going to be okay, but you got to at least get it close. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. But draw these short-term ones. You really need them in there. But let's back out and we'll talk about the trades and we'll go from there. We get way out here where we can see it. You had to be a little patient. There was a trade right out of the gate, then you just had to kind of sit tight. There's just not really much going on here that would make me want to stay in this trade. You may not have had this blue channel yet, but I would have at least drawn a line off these highs. I mean, there's some reason we're turning down right across here like that. But at the very least, you want to find this trend channel. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We got this other trade right here. But let me talk about this one. Of course, we trended up to the upper side, and we're trending back down. It looks a little congestive too. So you could call this a little failed breakout of congestion as well. But really, you can clearly see there's a little channel working lower right there. And we get the closeout side, we try to go lower once, we try to go lower twice. So there's a failed second entry short there. It's a double test if you draw a line across there. There's a couple different reasons. The trend has been up and it's been fairly strong. So there's several reasons to like going long right there. It is a little bit congestive, but this is a strong uptrend and prices are just trying to go lower and can't. So I like going long there. That little trout makes it worthwhile. First entry, second entry. Otherwise, I'd say that's a little bit too congestive. But with that trout and the fact that we can't even get back to the EMA after after this big move up here, that's a good sign. So, and then of course we run up and we just start going sideways. There's an entry here. Of course, it's an inside bar. It is a matching low, but it's just hard to really know with that being an inside bar if we're not going to make get a close outside or maybe make a measured move down. You always want to measure these little things. Oops, wrong one there. But measure these. Now there is a key entry point there as well, so you want to take that into account. But if you measure that, we're not quite there yet, especially at this point. And that's an inside bar. It's at the bottom of the support right there, and you're going long right into that. So I think you're better off to wait and see if you don't get another entry. And you do here, but by that time they're all stacked up side by side, and the EMA is just real flat there. And I just don't think it's worth risking. It would have worked if you'd have taken this one. This one you probably would have got stopped out. I think it broke higher first and then turned down. I'm not even certain that that's what happened. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it broke higher first and then turned down. So you would have got stopped out there, and then it wouldn't have been worth risking here because it looks like we're still trying to go lower, and so you may be trying to get that measured move down. And obviously we've closed outside the main trend line now, and it's not very far to the highs either. So I think you're better off just to skip that. If you took this first one, there's not much you can do. That's the reason I always tell you to wait on a higher low, generally on a breakout, although you do have that key entry point. So that makes that one real. I mean, that's a tough decision there, whether you should take that trade or not. And if you took it, I wouldn't beat myself up about it because it could have just as easily worked. And the only problem is it being an inside bar. It does have the matching lows, but I'd want to wait on a higher low or something there just to be sure that we aren't going lower or continue to go sideways there. And you do get a higher low here that would have given you enough room to get out, but you don't have a signal bar. And of course, by the time you get this failure here, now you're going short, you're going sideways with congestion again. Again, not worth risking. Then we break, then we finally turn down, we come back and you get a lower high here. I marked this one green because that is a very strong leg down, so you're probably going to get a second leg. And but there's still some issues with this. That's pretty far down to be a lower high. It's still a lower high, and you can clearly see there's only one leg, so you're probably going to get another leg. But I almost think you want to wait on a true reversal here, and that doesn't come till here. And so this is your true reversal. So I like going short there. But this one's a little, plus if you draw your trend line up, you can see there's no break of that. It's just really risky going short right there. It works, but it's just real risky, and I think you're better off to wait. And of course, once you start looking for a measured move, you can see we got that basically almost to the tick before we bounced. And then you get that failure, and that also confirms that downtrend line. And you still got a long way back down here. Even if you found this line up here and you drug it down to the lows, let me back out so you can see that. If you drew this across the highs and then drug it down to the very low down here, then you wouldn't have been surprised when it bounced there. But you still would have wanted more confirmation than that because it's still working. But we get our break here. We try to go lower once. We try to go lower twice. And you still don't really get a setup till here. Now you got a triple test technically this line, if you move it down, you can see we made the low. We tested it once, we tested it twice, and everything's still holding inside that trend line too. This is right off the lows of that trend channel, and that's also a second entry long. So a lot of different reasons to like that long right there. And if you catch that one trade, that's all you need for the day. And notice how this is running up. You get a close outside, a couple of moves up to a new high, and look where it turns down right off that midline. You definitely should have had that midline by now because you could have drawn it across these lows. And then we're working lower here, and you can clearly see that channel working down. You get a close outside. There's also a double test there. Is the reason I like. There's technically two legs back here, but notice you made that high. You test it once, you test it twice, and you get that big bearish bar that closes on the other side of the midline. You got to assume that prices are probably coming down here. There is this blue trend line here, which gives you some concern. But this is probably going to trap some people, and you're probably going to at least get a close outside here. And so I like that one for that reason. I went back and forth about whether or not to make that one green or not. But you can clearly see we come back here and then you get a lower high. I did make that one green just simply because you've already had a break and a new low, and you would expect prices to try to make a retest of the high of this blue channel. And that, so there's some reasons to expect prices to go higher. And then, of course, we come on down here and we bounce, and that does confirm this trend line here. There's a high or low right here, but we've already been back to the EMA, and this looks really congestive across here. I don't have the lines drawn, but it looks a little too congestive to risk a long right there. Oops. You can see that. We do make a higher low here, and you could argue that's a double bottom, so first entry, second entry, but again, it looks congestive. And we just keep chopping up into this congestion until finally you get one that looks, notice that new low, and then first entry, second entry, and it bounces off the EMA. You might go long there, but even then, now you've had a break and a couple legs up. So we could just turn up here and then turn back down. And you already do have a break and a new high in place. So it's still a little risky, but that's probably going to trap some shorts right there. And you can see how it rockets up real quick, a couple of bars before it turns back down. And that gives you proof that, hey, you probably had some trap people that got fooled right there. And of course, you turn down right at the midline. You try to go lower once, or try to go higher once. And you actually try to go higher there. So technically, your failed second entry long is right there, but it's not a very good setup. Look how congestive it looks. And then you even try to go higher again, but it's just not a very good setup to go short. And you definitely don't want to go long there. And that's why I highlighted this, because somebody, a couple people got long there. Let me get this out of the way. But the reason they did was they drew their trend line a little different. I think they had it drawn more like that. And if you draw it like that, then maybe you think about getting long right there. But I think this is your trend channel right here. You can clearly see prices working up through that, and then you get the break and a few legs up, and then it turns down. Either way, we just came off the midline, and so we're probably, when we start trending down, we're probably headed back to here. So you can clearly see this channel working lower here, and then you get your break outside. And you might have considered going short there. The only problem is that congestion. You can see it clearly. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and a couple of them have no bodies, and so I just think it's too risky to go short right there. Just wait till we come back to the main trend line and see if we get a setup. And of course we come back and you don't, and we actually get a close outside. But notice the break and new low. Now you could start looking for a long again, and it's just all congestion below the EMA. But finally we get a little, we break above, we turn back, and we break lower right there and turn up and go out the other side. And notice too, there's a little, this is basically a double bottom across here. You can see those two matching lows. So first entry, second entry. So technically that's like a failed second entry, and it's the higher low. It's back inside the trend line. It's a breakout pullback long. It's a little bit of a trap right there, and you can see it take off again. And so that turns out to be a nice entry. And of course we pull back right here. You don't really get a chance to go long. There's a higher low right here, but you're going long right into those highs. Hopefully you can see that resistance right there. And that's just not a good place to go long right there. Turns down and goes out the other side, but I just think you're better off to skip that. And then we run up here back to the midline again, and we just kind of get in this congestion. We just get a channel going here. And notice this, you come back and you find that support, and you finally get along here off the range. And there's also two legs up and a failed breakout. Normally I'd say, hey, you probably want to wait on the lower high here, but it is a second entry short. It is a failed breakout of clear resistance up here, and it's a big bearish bar, and there's still a lot of room back to the EMA. And if you draw your little trend line right there, you can clearly see too there's a break and two legs up right there. So that's another reason I like that one. If you wait on the high or low, you don't get a very good setup here. And that takes you in the 2 o'clock hour. Not a lot of trades today. Kind of a quiet day considering what we've been having. But still several good moves here. Several of these would have, if you just catch that one trade or even that trade right there, you probably it's all you needed for the day. I'm just trying to think if there's anything. Oh, one other thing I did want to say. Somebody else was asking me when I put this pat risk up here is what we call this, and it tells you the date, the time of the bar, the open, the high, the low, the close, the volume of the bar. What else? The bar size in ticks. That's a 7-tick bar, and so that it also gives you the risk. If you look at the very bottom there, it says risk signal, and that tells you how much money, including your stop being 1 tick below, you would risk if you took that trade and it was a loser. So, but somebody asked me how to put that up, and basically what you do is you put the arrow on the bar, and you don't click your right or left mouse button. You click the scroll button on the mouse, and then that'll pop up. If you don't have a scroll button, I'm not sure if there's another way to make it come up or not, to be honest, but you can see I'm just hitting the scroll button. So I meant to bring that up and I almost forgot. So, but I did want to share that with people that are using it. But anyway, that's pretty much it for today. And I'm putting this up a little early today. I've got another birthday. This fall from September through November is birthday month for, it's like a long one of birthdays in my family. My mother's, my daughters, my sons, my wife's, and mine all come through that period there. And so I'm doing the second one in 2 weeks here, and then I got about a week or so break, and then I got 2 more, and then a couple of weeks break, and then mine comes up. So anyway, I'm leaving early today for another birthday party, and you'll probably hear me say that a few times over the next month because it's just a long stretch of birthdays for me here. But anyway, I hope you had a good trading day. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. And we'll see you next time.